This, slightly bashed, I think, is my favourite mug because it was the first one I ever bought in 1971 when I went on a Saku student trip. You can hardly read it, but you know, a single spark, you get your hua, can start a prairie fire. It only takes one person and then it can all blow up. Enamel mugs with significance beyond roses became quite an obsession, actually, because it was so bright and cheerful, unlike most other things in China at the time. I thought it was Lin Biao who said a single spark can start a prairie fire. And, I mean, certainly I remember that the whole thing about going then was that Lin Biao kind of was in the middle of disappearing as we were in China that summer. It's a long time ago. It's a terrific design and reminds me of that time.
I think this is the most interesting item. It comes from the 1972 tour of the Committee of Concerned Asian Scholars of the United States. And they came immediately on their return to UK. And as the secretary of the AREAS, Association of Radical East Asian Studies, they came to talk to us and gave me this badge. And on it says, "To the US people and against US imperialism." My first tour in China was 1976. This says, "In honor of Chairman Mao, long live forever, without bounds." And it was the time of the Dada Deng Xiaoping demonstrations, just after the demonstration mourning Zhou Enlai. So it was the Gang of Four period starting. So it's a Maoist time.
I first went to China in 1985, September 1985, and I found that it was very strange. China was in the midst of economic reforms, but reforms are just coming to the cities at that point. So I had spending money, but there was really nothing to spend it on. And then I noticed that in stationery stores and department stores, that Chinese people were making and buying a lot of interesting pencil sharpeners. So eventually I collected about 200 different pencil sharpeners. A lot of the pencil sharpeners were about aspirations, about what Chinese people dreamed they could and should be able to have, to buy. But often they weren't able to buy for a long time. So this was quite early. It's an electric fan. People were able to buy this in the 1980s. But some other things like a car, an automobile, people weren't really able to buy something like this until about 2000. Some of the funniest ones are of alcohol. So you would think that pencil sharpeners are for little kids, but this is a Maotai bottle of rice liquor. So it's very strange to be thinking of getting drunk while you're sharpening your pencil. Brandy, a refrigerator, a teeny weeny television, a video phone, a shrimp, violin, golf clubs. China doesn't really have handguns, so it's really strange to see this pencil sharpener in the shape of a gun. My favorite one is this laughing Buddha. And it's my favorite because it's so strange, a Buddha pencil sharpener, but it's also my favorite because it was given to me by a friend, and it was actually my first pencil sharpener.
So these are so-called grass shoes, 早海, 早鞋. I bought those in 2006 when I was doing my original fieldwork in China. These were for the people in the mountains of southern China who either they wore those or they just went barefoot. At first, no one wanted to sell these shoes to me because these are kind of the shoes that all farmers wear in this area of central China. And people always thought it was ridiculous that a foreigner would wear those kind of shoes. After like more than half a year, when I was in this area, one of my neighbors, my friends, he bought them for me actually, and he showed me how to wear them. And since then, during kind of the last few months of my fieldwork, I was wearing them daily, walking around the mountains of the hills of western Hubei.
In this exhibit, other people are showing things that they got in the 70s from the Cultural Revolution. I'm showing stuff I got in the 80s. Most of those things are about being modern, kind of a Maoist modern in the 70s and a reform modern in the 80s.
Well, you could say, I mean, easily you could say this is the essence of tradition. And that's actually really how it's seen locally. So modern young people who work in the cities, officials, businessmen, they would never wear those, because if you wear those, that's kind of the attribute of being a peasant. For the same reason, it was ridiculous that a foreigner would wear those. Because I mean, me as a foreigner, as a German, as a blonde-haired kind of fellow, people thought that was really difficult to understand why someone like that would wear these shoes. I mean, as an anthropologist, I was trying to kind of do as the locals do, and you know, in Chinese you would say, 同吃同住同劳动. So I was eating with them, I was working with them, and I was living with them. So doing all the things as the locals do. Minus, I'm obviously not a local. That's the problem, and it's somehow like the same as with the shoes. Wearing those shoes, I try to get as close as possible and do the things that locals do. So I was wearing those shoes, and actually towards the end of it, I got used to them, and I felt really comfortable walking around the hills with those shoes. I mean, other than anything, they're actually really practical and kind of comfortable to walk around the hills.